Hello everybody, it's Steph here from Coin Up Community, and as you can see today I am joined by John White, CEO of Bacta. Hello John, how are you? How are you coping?
Well, I think trying to cope is probably the best answer I can give you, Steph. The news out of Scotland yesterday just added to all the stress that we've already had in trying to get England and Wales open.
Yes, it's just a never-ending process. Can you take us through what the current situation is in Scotland, please?
So the current position as of yesterday is that no amusement machines can be operated effectively anywhere in the country. Prior to that confirmation from the Scottish Government, machines in pubs were operating quite happily. We'd had a number of instances where local authorities and police forces had said, no, you've got to turn them off. But the guidance that had been published by the Scottish Government was silent on the matter. And we, along with the Scottish Pub and Beer Association and UK Hospitality in Scotland, had published guidance, some of that even on the Scottish Government website, making it absolutely clear that if you did a proper risk assessment and put in place mitigating measures, then it was perfectly okay for you to have your machines on and for your customers to play. And it's the same situation as it is in England, and that's working very, very well. But what happened was on Friday, as part of our lobbying to get the amusement arcade sector open, we met with Scottish Government, and they gave us the clearest indication yet that for adult gaming centres on the high street, we'd be opening on the 22nd of July, i.e. yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was coinciding with the very public statement from the bookmakers that they would be switching their machines on yesterday. And certainly from the press coverage, I was under the impression that they'd had some kind of official sanction. So that all tied in quite nicely. And again, we were told on Friday that the Scottish Government would issue positive clarification about the position in pubs. Well, over the weekend and on Monday and Tuesday of this week, I started to get increasingly nervous because the promised confirmation from the Scottish Government didn't arrive. And late on Tuesday, it was becoming clear that we were not going to get that confirmation, indicating that we were going to be told to stay closed on Wednesday. Of course, that was utterly unacceptable. You couldn't have bookmakers' machines on and arcades not open. And we never even thought that they would renege on what was some very strong inside sources telling us that the positive news was going to come about pubs. So it was a bit of a shock when we got a letter saying no machines at all anywhere. And I have to say, you know, we've swung once again into campaigning mode north of the border, and just making sure that MSPs and ministers up there are reminded, if reminding they need be, just what we bring to Scottish culture, Scottish economy, and to the population of the country. Will that get the decision overturned? No, it won't, but rather like what happened in England when we were told we couldn't open AGCs on the 15th of June, I think what it does do is it does place increased pressure on the Scottish Government to get us open at the next milestone date, which is the 31st of July. And I have to say, you know, that is probably the last possible date, certainly for our seasonal businesses, that we could get open. If we don't get open by then, the season's gone. The schools go back in mid-August in Scotland.
Right. And what can Bacta members and others in the industry do to support your efforts to get in touch with their local MSPs? And
Absolutely. I wrote to all members in Scotland last night and asked them to write to their MSPs with some suggested words, just basically pointing out the very simple fact that if they don't get open, that has very major and significant consequences for their business. Yeah. And pointing out, quite rightly, that the businesses in Scotland are following both official guidance and back to sectoral guidance in a way that makes them perfectly safe for their customers. And I think that's what's so irritating about all of this, Steph, is that, you know, we've done the work, the members have done the work, they've incurred the costs, they're ready to go. We know it works, we know that we're safe because we've had 3 weeks trading in England now without any problems whatsoever. In fact, environmental health officers in England have gone round and have been praising Bacta members for how well they've implemented the guidance and how safe they are. So it's deeply frustrating to be told that, you know, well, you can't open, we've still got concerns about the risk, we're following the science, etc., etc. Well, you're not actually.
No, no. We did have some success in Scotland. I believe you had some success over the rate situation. You got clarification on that. That was one victory that I think we should mention as well.
Indeed, and a very important one as well. As you appreciate, all the different countries of the United Kingdom decided to have slightly different retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief schemes and associated grants. And the position in Scotland was that for seaside amusement arcades, there didn't seem to be any question about your eligibility for the relief and the grants. But for the high street arcades, the application of the relief and the grants was very patchy across the country. So we pressed quite hard from the outset for some very clear clarification from the Scottish Government that the rates applied across the board. And actually, even as recently as 2 weeks ago, we were slightly concerned that the Scottish Government was going to withdraw the rates relief for seaside arcades because of the way in which some of the arguments had sort of filtered back to us. So we doubled up our efforts, and we're very pleased to get confirmation from Finance Minister Ben Macpherson just over a week ago to say, look, no, we fully understand your arguments. You are eligible for the scheme. We understand it's not as clear as it could be, and we'll be bringing forward secondary legislation to do so very, very shortly, and telling local authorities that they must give the rates relief to all bacta members.
That's fantastic. Unfortunately, the situation in Wales is not clear either, and in fact, you've been highlighting this week the case of an AGC that's been asked to give back £25,000 that it had received in support from the local authority. Can you explain the situation in Wales to us?
Yeah, I mean, Wales has probably driven me close to madness, Steph, to be honest. Really just the inability of the Welsh Government and local councils to have a rational grown-up discussion with you about the interpretation that they're placing on their guidance around the retail, leisure and hospitality relief and grants scheme. Simple matter again, a bit like Scotland, there doesn't seem to be any issue around seaside arcades eligibility for the relief and the grant, but on the high street, local councils in Wales have been interpreting the guidance in different ways. And we've been saying to those that haven't given grants or relief to our members on the high street, look, why are you doing this? You know, the guidance is the same as it was in England. It was changed in England. I appreciate that it hasn't changed in Wales, but you, local authority, do have the discretion as to whether to grant. And those that weren't granting were saying, oh, well, you're like a bingo hall. Well, that's great. You can have the grant because you're giving it to the bingo hall. And they're going, oh, no, we mean you're over 18 gambling. And you say, well, so is a bingo hall.
Yeah.
So can't we have? Oh, no, you're more like a betting office or a casino. We say, well, we're not. You know. And then you say, well, have you actually visited any of these premises to allow you to make that comparison? No. So it feels like it's just prejudicial, and we can't engage with anyone. We very happily take them round the premises and show them that they're not the same, so that they can have some comfort. Anyway, we made such a nuisance of ourselves that we got a letter from the head of finance of the Welsh Government, basically saying, no, it's up to the local councils to decide what to do. And we said, well, we know that we're not disputing that. The issue is about the way they've applied it. And he's apparently away for 2 weeks, so I can't have a discussion with him. I was saying, I hope he's not unwell, but if he is away for 2 weeks on holiday, I hope he's not decided to go to some seaside resort in England so that you can play on the pushers and stuff. But,
exactly.
It would be superbly ironic. But I'm departing and being facetious. It's just illustrative of how difficult it's been to engage with the Welsh Government and local authorities. They keep pushing it back to each other. And what this fella did was he wrote to the local authorities confirming that the local authorities have the discretion to determine whether or not to make the grant. And local authorities seem to be taking that as a decision of the Welsh Government not to give the grants to high street arcades. And what's happened in this one particular council, they were quite happy to give the grant. They've received this letter from the Welsh Government, read it and said, oh, okay, we shouldn't have given the grant, and have written to the company and asked for the money back. Now that is just, I mean, it beggars belief. You know, here is the money provided by UK government to councils around the country, in the UK, to support businesses that have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, that's all written there in black and white. Try and help companies get through this crisis. And here is a good local company employing 6 local people in a rural part of Wales. You know, they need jobs there. And you've got a council saying, pay up in 7 days or we're going to enforce this through debt collection agency.
Yeah.
I can't, you know, at this current time, can you believe it? I mean, can you believe it?
No,
It's
it seems beyond cruel, really, doesn't it?
It does. It's heartless. It's absolutely heartless. And there's been a bit of press coverage of it, which is nice to see, because it kind of, you know, it warrants public attention, this, because this is very, very bad behaviour by the council, and I hope they'll rethink. And we most recently written to the First Minister there, Mark Drakeford, and said, look, this is just embarrassing. You know, you need to sort this out. Your government and your councils are just not engaging with us. I don't suspect any response, to be honest with you, Steph, but you know, it felt good to write the letter, and we keep banging away on this grants issue because it just feels so unjust and unreasonable. Better news, the Welsh Government has engaged with us. We've eventually found the right person to talk to. They've engaged with us about our guidance. They've approved our Welsh guidance. That's now we're back to members who are implementing that and have been for weeks in their businesses, all ready to go to try and catch at least part of the summer season. That's now been submitted to ministers with a recommendation that we open up both seaside and inland on the 27th. But that is only a recommendation, and before that we've been sort of given an indicative date, and again that's all we can get, of the 3rd of August. But it'd be nice to get open a week earlier if we possibly could. Yeah.
Well, fantastic work. I could hear your phone going even as we were talking there, no doubt. Other issues for you to sort out. It's been a tough few months, hasn't it, John? I mean, you've been working in trade associations for your whole career. I bet you've never experienced anything quite like these last few months, really.
No, nothing like it at all. I've never had to work quite so hard, Steph, and never had to, you know, lobby as hard. Constantly reacting to new bits and pieces of information that are being sent out by government. I like to think we've done quite a good job in keeping members informed about what's going on. The feedback's been quite good. You know, yes, there'll be a time when we sit back a bit more calmly and reflect on the things that we did well and the things we didn't do so well. I've certainly learned a huge amount about the devolved administrations that I didn't know before. You know, with gambling being you know, not devolved and basically a Westminster matter, we tend to spend most of our time in Westminster. So it's been quite an eye-opener dealing with Scotland and Wales, and how those governments work and the people that are involved there.
Yes, so if we were to take a positive from all of this, it would be really that we have, you know, bacta has certainly made the issue of amusement arcades, AGCs, FECs, the plight of the seasides, much more public to those in those areas that are responsible for legislating. So really from a PR point of view, I think that, you know, for a relatively small trade association, done a fantastic job of getting that message out to everybody.
Yeah, I think, and we must acknowledge the role of the members in all of this, Steph, as well. I've said for many years that bacta punches above its weight, because it does, you know, and I do have experience of the trade association world, and I know good lobbying and well-run trade associations when I see them. All of the work, albeit it's been focused on Westminster over the past, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years, making sure that the people who need to know about us, pays dividends when you have campaigns that we had to have in England, for example, to to get us open on the 4th of July post that 15th of June debacle. Establishing those contacts just means you don't have to start from scratch. And I think, you know, reflecting perhaps earlier than I would like to on the situation in Scotland and Wales, our relationships were not as strong there. And so we were starting from a slightly further back position than we were in England. And that's something that we need to acknowledge. But, you know, we're not a tiny industry. We're a small industry in the greater scheme of things, you know, contributing 2 billion nationally to the UK economy. You know, that's not small, but it's not big, you know, and you think about the hospitality and leisure sector, you know, we're in the hundreds of billions there. You know, automotive, you know, those big sectors. And we're getting our voice heard. In different circumstances, I probably would have whooped with joy, but to hear the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, reference the reopening of arcades in his statement in the House of Commons was quite something, I thought.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Well,
and that's down to members. It's down to members.
Yes, no, we'll carry on the great work, John. I'll let you go, and thank you very much for joining us today for this chat.
No, very great pleasure, Steph, and we'll see you soon. And yeah, good luck to everyone whenever you get it reopened.
Fantastic. Thanks, John.
Bye now.